If you're anything like me, you might have noticed that a lot of priests and, let's be honest, Catholic men in general, are pretty weak. By weak, I don't mean that they can't bench press their ideal body weight the way some of us can, or that the lack of giant biceps, or even that they're not physically fit. That's not the strength I'm thinking of. The state of many Catholic men, and for some reason, especially among priests, seems to be a problem of masculinity. Specifically the lack of masculinity. Part of the problem is one of the larger Western society, where testosterone levels have dropped by 40% over the average man for the past 40 years, which is due to plastics in virtually everything, as well as increasing consumption of unfermented soy in virtually all processed foods. Another factor is the rising levels of obesity in the Western world, which is itself a clear indicator of the decadence of modern Western man. Another part, possibly more pertinent to our discussion here, is not only the rising influence of women in the political and social discourse in Western politics, but the implementation of a de facto matriarchy. All you have to do is look at the treatment of Justice Kavanaugh and the number of women who simply repeated drone-like that we should believe all women and believe all survivors, which makes the recent news that 4 of the 5 women who accused Kavanaugh of assault are probably going to go to jail for lying to federal investigators. They literally made the accusations up. This is all part of the larger problem we have in the West. We've collectively rejected the natural law and natural arrangements. The Church has taught that hierarchy is completely natural, and that egalitarian equalitarianism is unnatural. The result has been an effeminate society, characterized by sex abuse, the normalization of the Bay Area lifestyle, the rise of gender confusion, and many other things that have all happened in civilizations in the past, right before their collapse. Given all of this, imagine my surprise to see that Cardinal Ouellet, yes, the same Cardinal Ouellet who confirmed all of Archbishop Vigano's accusations, while condemning him for taking a stand against a corrupt regime in the Vatican, came out and said that the problem in the Church today isn't the embrace of the world, with all the aforementioned problems that will lead to the collapse of the West, but masculinity itself. Let's have a look at the article. Headline: Church needs women to fight clericalism. Extreme masculinity, Cardinal Ouellet says. This was published on the 18th of October. Vatican. The Church needs to further integrate women into ecclesial life to confront the problems of clericalism and an exaggerated sense of masculinity, a Vatican official told the Synod of Bishops. In his address to the Synod members October 18th, Cardinal Mark Ouellet, prefect of the Congregation for Bishops, said he agreed with the working document's assertion that there sometimes is an ecclesial inability to recognize, welcome, and foster the creativity of the feminine genius. The participation of authoritative women in the discussion has shown us that it is possible and necessary to accelerate the processes of struggle against the machista culture and clericalism, to develop respect for women and the recognition of their charisms, as well as their equal integration in the life of society and the Church, the Cardinal said. The importance of women, as well as a proposed Synod of Bishops on the theme of the woman in the life and the mission of the Church, were discussed in depth during the March 6th to 9th plenary meeting of the Pontifical Commission for Latin America, the Cardinal recalled. Cardinal Ouellet, who also serves as president of the commission, said the plenary assembly ended with a call for a cultural conversion of the Church, for a new season of recognition and a promotion of women not only in Latin America, but also in the world. If that reminds you of anything, it shouldn't be surprising. What comes to mind is this. Brace yourself.
Boys face a number of pressures related to their gender. For example, pressure to be physically tall and muscular, to push down feelings, especially fear and pain, to never cry or be vulnerable, pressure to be into sports or to have manly hobbies, to prove yourself using violence or intimidation to solve problems, to prove your manhood by having lots of sex, learning to see women as sex objects and struggling to have meaningful relationships with them, pressure to be one of the guys, to make harmless jabs at each other meant to establish dominance, pressure to be the protector in a relationship, never the protected, to be the breadwinner, the handyman, the money manager, to pursue physically demanding, dangerous, or even violent jobs, pressure to be the leader and to always have the answers.
That clip was from a young woman named Lacey Green, and I'm not going to attack Miss Green's take on masculinity here per se. She's been attacked enough over the years and, frankly, has had her worldview evolve, which is a credit to her. And I chose an older clip of hers because she does a better job of explaining what they think toxic masculinity is than almost anyone on YouTube does today. If you want to see what a well-presented feminist take on masculinity is, complete with all the errors built into the argument, a link to that video is found on my blog. It's always interesting when men like Cardinal Ouellet throw around the term clericalism, which they've never really defined. I'll do a video on what clericalism actually is sometime soon. The claim that the church needs women in positions of authority is also an interesting one because it suggests that Cardinal Ouellet has been struck blind. The church at the parish level, and yes, even in the diocesan chanceries, are often run by women. The offices that dictate communications are run by women. The parish councils are often run by women. Finance committees, building project coordinators, all of it are often run by women. I know this because I served on a parish council once. A little secret of political science and public administration is revealing here. Who runs the bureaucracy can dictate what happens in an organization, or at least slow it down greatly. Call it the deep church if you like. But there's another problem, the elephant in the room, and that problem is the Rainbow Coalition, or the clergy who live the Bay Area lifestyle in the church. The problem isn't masculinity, dear Cardinal, but a lack of masculinity. The church is run by the feminine and the effeminate. The truly masculine priest is rare and probably keeps his head down because he knows that a homo-fascist like Supich or Ouellet will have his head if he dares to speak out, thus undermining the masculine priest's masculinity. Do you see how this works? We should probably define masculinity. To do that, we look at Holy Scripture. The example of God the Father is instructive here. Masculinity can be understood in a Catholic and biblical sense as the right ordered way that men are made to actively initiate love and use their strength to protect and promote that love. It's seen when our blessed Lord sacrificed himself on the cross in order that souls may be saved. After all, no greater love can a man have than to lay down his life for his friends. Love is beautiful. One of the purposes of masculinity is to let that beauty flourish. Beauty is one of the things that will motivate men to lay down their lives for others. I don't mean the kind of beauty a young woman possesses, though certainly empires have risen and fallen because of that kind of beauty. Hello, Helen of Troy. I mean the beauty of the natural law, the beauty of the right-ordered society, the beauty of the family, the beauty of the classical church. And all of those things are threatened today by a devastatingly unmasculine, effeminate society that has undermined the discipline and natural complementarity required to make those things possible. The lack of transcendent beauty in the church today is an indictment of the state of masculinity in the priesthood. A loss of transcendent beauty is the most visible in two places today: the typical Mass celebrated at the typical parish in the West, and in the focus of the church on worldly affairs. Let's start with the second point here. Pope Leo XIII wrote 11 encyclicals on the Holy Rosary. 11. I will record them all and get them uploaded over the course of the next year or so, God willing, if this channel continues to grow and if I'm able to make a living doing this. 11 encyclicals. If you want to think about how incredible that is, think about it for a moment. Can you imagine the current papacy producing even a single encyclical on the Rosary? You get some glimpses of transcendent beauty in Laudato Si because anyone who has a true appreciation for the created world will tell you that God is not only an artist, but that he likes to show off, and one of his favorite mediums to do that in is the environment. That's not to say that I like Laudato Si. I don't, but for entirely different reasons. By all of this, I mean that when the faith is rightly understood and when the worship and teachings are right ordered themselves, they're astonishingly beautiful. They give everyone a glimpse into heaven. That's why the attendance at many Latin Masses continues to increase across the West, and the attendance at the typical parish Mass on Sunday continues to shrink. The transcendent beauty of the Mass seems rarely present on Sundays anymore. For the Church, the problem today isn't masculinity, but milquetoast liturgy and teaching. The contemporary Church is plagued today with weak teaching, an emphasis on the social work of the Church, and not judging anyone or anything, and turning a blind eye to evil. Father Longenecker calls this the dictatorship of sentimentality, and that's an apt way of describing the situation. Sentimentality rules the day, and sentimentality is effeminate. For the average Catholic man, we can see this undermining of masculinity in how marriage is understood today. Humanae Vitae is the lens that human sexuality is understood in the church today, and that's a tragedy. I know now that some of you may be shocked by that, but that's because we've all been trained to think of Paul VI's encyclical on human sexuality as something profound and sacred. I'll give him credit for promulgating an encyclical that he knew would be unpopular, though I doubt he knew how unpopular it would be in the end. But compared to what Pius XI had promulgated only 3 decades prior in Casti Connubii, it pales in comparison. If you've never heard of that encyclical, I'm not surprised. The conciliar church treats everything from before the council as being irrelevant, other than a few things that can be used to further the direction of the church when misappropriated, like Rerum Novarum, for example. As an aside, this Saturday I'll upload Casti Connubii in full to this channel so you can listen to it. It's remarkable, and it says everything that Humanae Vitae said, but in the proper way without the errors that were made in the writing of Humanae Vitae. One of those errors is relevant here, that sex and marriage is for the betterment of the spouses and the procreation of children, in that order. Casti Connubii puts the combating of concupiscence as an afterthought, because prior to the council, men and women were expected to exercise heroic virtue, which is part of masculinity. The fact is this: while everyone is expected to live a life of heroic virtue, it's the men who are expected to live this to a greater degree. Or we were, at any rate. Now we live in a society deeply disordered that has created a false equality, which has replaced the complementarity of the sexes, leading to greater and greater social disorder. Ruin is coming, not because of masculinity, but because we have rejected it. Like that clip of Lacey Green I showed earlier, the church has now accepted strange worldly notions of masculinity, which should not be surprising when we see the likes of Pastor Jimmy Martin and Cardinal Tagle exercising the greatest influence in the church today. If you like videos like this, like and share this video and subscribe, and click that notification bell below. You can support my work if you want to through Patreon. A link is found in the description below, along with links to my Twitter, the blog, and the Facebook page I manage. For Return to Tradition, I'm Anthony Stein. Viva Cristo Rey.